Welcome to the Fantasy Football News Week 13 edition. I'm your host, Eric. Penultimate week of the regular season saw a few new records set and has also given more clarity to the playoff picture. Let's talk about the playoffs. We will have a championship playoff bracket and a toilet bowl tournament bracket. Several teams have already qualified for their respective brackets. In the championship playoffs, each division winner automatically gets a first round bye and are the number one and number two seeds based on one loss record with total points scored as the tiebreaker. The next four spots in the championship bracket will be based on the same criteria, regardless of division. In the first round, the number three seed will face the number six seed, while the number four seed will battle the number five. The winners of the first round will move on to the semifinals, where the number one seed will face the lowest remaining seed, and the number two seed faces the other team. The losers of the first round will enter the toilet bowl tournament. The winners of the semifinal matches will face off for the inaugural championship of our league, while the losers will play for third and fourth place. The toilet bowl tournament will not be a classic head-to-head matchup, but instead a three-game total points race. The four qualifiers and the two first-round losers in the playoffs will total their points after three games, and the team that has accumulated the highest point total will win the $10 prize and the admiration, or not, of the rest of the league. This will make it critical for each team to stay involved for the chance to win the toilet bowl tournament and be a part of history. Lastly, there are the playoff prizes. First place in the championship bracket will pay $70, second place $45, third place $30, fourth place $25, and the toilet bowl winner will receive $10. These prizes are in addition to any $5 weekly prizes that you may have won throughout the season. On to the matchups. Our first matchup is Washington Fantasy versus the Sandlot Turf Burns. After starting the season at 1-4, Washington Fantasy manager Corey had to be thinking that he had waded into the deep end. Fortunately for Corey, his team has since won 5 of their last 7, including a 2-game win streak coming into this week. With Aaron Rodgers on bye, Washington Fantasy gambled on starting Taysom Hill, a gamble that ultimately paid off with a 26.66 point performance. There were a few other performances that really stood out on the Washington Fantasy roster. However, they were still able to put up enough points to secure the win against the Sandlot Turf Burns. For his part, Mike had no players score more than 19.5 points scored by Josh Jacobs in his flex position. The matchup did have some playoff implications, as the winner was likely to clinch a position and the loser would need to go on and win in week 14 as well to clinch their spot. Final in this one was Washington Fantasy 112.21, Sandlot Turf Burns 97.36. In week 14, Washington Fantasy will take on the Rebel Scum in a match that will likely decide the number 2 playoff seed, while the Sandlot Turf Burns will face off against current number 1 seed team Deathridger in a match that could also cause that bye to change hands. Our second matchup was Garbage Time versus Wu-Tang Cash. In week 13, Garbage Time continued to live up to their name as Cooper Kupp made several catches after the Rams had already outclassed the hapless Jaguars. Bolstered by an excellent effort from Dallas Goedert, Garbage Time was able to overcome yet another lackluster performance from Dak Prescott. Wu-Tang Cash continued to have issues at the quarterback position as Patrick Mahomes failed to score at an elite level, even in a winning effort for the Chiefs. Garbage Time wins this one 104.52 to 96.66. Garbage Time's winning effort kept them in contention for the number 2 seed, needing a Rebel Scum loss or to outscore Rebel Scum by 82 points to take over the lead in the Powerhouse South Division. While Wu-Tang Cash will now need a win next week, coupled with a Sandlot Turf Burns loss to make the championship bracket. Garbage Time faces off against Team Marty in week 14, while Wu-Tang Cash will head out to the generic stadium to take on the GFT. Our third matchup, Team Deathridger versus Team Scott Scott. In the first half of the season, it seemed that there was no way to lose while deciding on a starting quarterback for Team Deathridger. Both Josh Allen and Tom Brady were putting up massive efforts as they both looked in MVP form. Over the last several weeks, however, it has been a split between them, with Team Deathridger seemingly being on the wrong side of the points each time. This week was no exception, as Deathridger starts Josh Allen in a 13.7 point effort, while Tom Brady and his 37.12 points watched from the bench. Fortunately for Deathridger, Team Scott Scott failed to start a running back in place of the injured Alvin Kamara and had only mediocre postings from the remainder of their roster. Team Deathridger wins this matchup 126.4 to 93.1. Team Deathridger hangs on to the number 1 seed and the lead in the North Division. At 8-5, Team Deathridger needs either a Stars and Stripes loss or to win and outscore Stars and Stripes to retain that number 1 seed. Team Scott is unable to make it into the championship bracket, but will be competing in the Toilet Bowl consolation bracket. In Week 14, Team Deathridger will battle the Turf Burns, while Team Scott matches up with Stars and Stripes. Our fourth matchup, Generic Football Team versus Stars and Stripes. Heading into Monday night's game, Randy and the Generic Football Team held a slim 4.92 point lead over Stars and Stripes, who had only Patriots running back Ramondre Stevenson left to play. Mike must have been sweating bullets as Ramondre made his way to a final score of 7.8 to secure the win for Stars and Stripes. A few key roster moves on either side of this matchup could have seen the match go to the other side. More on that in a moment. Stars and Stripes wins this one, 116.58 to 113.7. Stars and Stripes has clinched a championship bracket berth, but can still take the number 1 seed with a win and a Team Deathridger loss, or if both teams win, by outscoring Team Deathridger by at least 9.5 points. The Generic Football Team is out of championship consideration, but will be fighting hard in the Toilet Bowl competition. Next up for Stars and Stripes is a visit from Team Scott, while the GFT gets a visit from Wu-Tang Cash. And now, our weekly $5 contest. Our Week 13 contest was highest scoring losing team. Randy is our Week 13 winner as his Generic Football Team put up 113.7 points in a losing effort against Stars and Stripes. Week 14 will be our final $5 contest week, and it will be awarded to the single highest scoring starter from the entire regular season. As it stands right now, Mike Frazier is leading this category with his Week 5 quarterback score of 53.32. I am once again personally offering an additional $5 bounty to any manager who starts a player in any position that beats that 53.32 point score. And I should say any manager except Frazier, because the bounty is on Frazier here. Good luck to everybody. And now, who made a crappy decision?
Who made a crappy decision? Who made a crappy decision? Who made a crappy decision? Who made a crappy decision? Who what made a crappy decision? Who they thinking made a crappy decision? Who what made a crappy decision? Who they thinking made a crappy decision? Who 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 made a crappy decision?
Hello, everybody. It's crappy decision time. Veronica failed to find a replacement quarterback for either of her injured players. While this likely would not have helped her in the final score, Veronica made a crappy decision. Veronica made a crappy decision. Yeah, what was she thinking? Randy could have started the Cincinnati defense as well as newly acquired Tyler Higbee and scored a win. Randy made a crappy decision. Randy made a crappy decision. Yeah, what was he thinking? Team Scott failed to replace Alvin Kamara, who has been injured since Week 10. There may be hope for Week 14 as Kamara may make a return. But still, Helen made a crappy decision. Helen made a crappy decision. Yeah, what was she thinking? If there is a harder luck case in the league this year than Mike and the Turf Burns, I do not know what it is. Benching Russell Wilson against arch nemesis the 49ers cost Mike 8.38 points. Unlikely that the Turf Burns get the win either way, but still, Mike made a crappy decision. Mike made a crappy decision. Yeah, what was he thinking? Rob chose to go with Jacksonville's James Robinson over the Chicago scoring machine David Montgomery, a move that cost him 22.1 points and the win. Rob made a crappy decision. Rob made a crappy decision. Yeah, what was he thinking? That's it from down here in the sewer. for week 13. I hope to see you all again in the playoffs. Don't make crappy decisions. Don't make crappy decisions. Yeah. What were they thinking?
And now, Mike's game of the week.
Mike's game. It's Mike's game. Mike's game of the week. It's Mike's game. Mike's game. Mike's game of the week. Mike's game of the week. Mike's game of the week. Mike's game. It's Mike's game. Mike's game of the week. It's Mike's game of the week. Mike's game of the week. It's Mike's game. It's Mike's game. Mike's game of the week. It's Mike's game. Mike's game of the week. It's Mike's game. Mike's game. Game of the week. It's Mike's game. Mike's game. Mike's game of the week. It's Mike's game of the week. Game of the week. Oh, Mike's game. It's Mike's game of the week. Mike's game of the week. Yeah.
Our final matchup this week was Team Marty versus Rebel Scum. Mike's game of the week this week is presented by Eric. This week, Rebel Scum faced off against Team Marty in a must-win for Rebel Scum if they wanted to remain in control of the number 2 seed and a first-round bye. A return to the field and to form for Kyler Murray, as well as a record-breaking performance from tight end George Kittle, saw Rebel Scum improve more than 108 points over his Week 12 effort. For Team Marty, a failure to find a replacement for the injured Jalen Hurts, as well as an in-game injury to Adam Thielen, saw Veronica's hopes for a spoiler win slip away. Rebel Scum wins this one, 166.72 to 76.2. This 90.52 point differential was the highest of any match this season. For Rebel Scum to remain in control of the South Division, he must either win or hope for a garbage time loss while also maintaining his points lead, which may prove tough as Rebel Scum takes on one of, if not the hottest team in the league in Washington Fantasy next week. Team Marty will face off against Garbage Time in a match the Rebel Scum will be watching closely. That's it for the scores this week, folks. Thank you once again for joining us. Week 14 will see 4 teams on bye: the Patriots, Colts, Dolphins, and Eagles. Remember to double check those rosters and ensure you are starting a full squad. Have a great week 14 and good luck to everybody except Corey. Have a great week. And remember, here at Fantasy Football News, we're better than you.